sometimes we just have to take the time. I know it's out of our routine, but step up and join because we need all of our voices in our community. We need everyone, all hands on deck. This is an exciting time, but it's only going to be the community we want if we get to share our voice.
Leadership is everywhere. In our work, in our family, in our community. We see leaders by their actions. We know their legacy. This podcast is about leaders, people just like you, doing amazing things every day. I hope these stories inspire you, they motivate you, and they fuel your leadership legacy. My name is Vicki Guy. Welcome to Ignite. Hi, and welcome to Ignite. We hope that you've been enjoying our conversations, and if so, please hit the subscribe button. You know, cities can operate much like companies, and the city that I'm in, Gainesville, Florida, has very quickly transformed from a small college town into a growing business hub, thanks to many, many people like Eric Godet. As president and CEO of the Greater Gainesville Chamber of Commerce, Eric strives for the town to reach its fullest potential. His success with the city comes from listening to the voices of the people and not just its leaders. Later on Ignite, we'll hear more from Eric Godet on how he helped make Gainesville one of the fastest growing cities in America.
My name is Dana Morrison. I'm the IT director at Grace Christian School in Raleigh, North Carolina. IT directors often hoard so much knowledge that it's hard for their team members to learn. IT Pro TV has given us the ability to level up our technicians to a point where they can decide this is important for me to learn. I would recommend IT Pro TV to any IT team. It's just a great tool for any IT professional.
Welcome back to Ignite. We're here today with Eric Godet, who is the president and the CEO of the Greater Gainesville Chamber of Commerce. Eric, thank you so much for being on Ignite today with us.
It is my pleasure. I'm so excited to be here with you.
Yeah, so I'm wondering if you could share with us before we get into some specifics of just some of the stories that you want to share, some of the responsibilities that you have as the president and CEO of a chamber, of a city as, I guess, diverse and as exciting as Gainesville is.
Well, it is definitely an honor, and it is a privilege to be the president and CEO of our Greater Gainesville Chamber here. And because it's an exciting time in our community overall. We have a tremendous amount of growth with our local companies that are really growing and expanding at record rates. We're watching our infrastructure change throughout our community. We're watching the retail expand and grow. We're watching startups continue to need larger spaces. We're watching our citizens really embrace the idea of really being an innovative or a new American city. And so to me, I just am tickled and so pleased to live here and to see this growth and be a part of all the energy that's happening every day.
Yeah, and as a longtime resident of Gainesville myself, and you know, Gainesville is where the Ignite podcast is located, where IT Pro TV is located. I know that a lot of us that have lived in this city, and probably in many cities around the U.S., we see changes over time. And I've seen a lot of those changes happen right here in Gainesville. And what you had mentioned around just the retail segment and the corporate segment, what do you see as been just the biggest reason for such a robust acceleration in growth over the last few years?
Well, a lot of growth that you see in communities comes out of planning that was done ahead of time. And so in our community, we have a history going back even 10, 15 years where people were planning for this and working hard to make this happen. So there were a lot of studies, a lot of groups for all the expansion and growth that you see happening in Butler Plaza, that you see happening in Celebration, and that work, the incredible growth that you see in Innovation Square around the hub, the whole Innovate UF. That was in the works also over 10 years ago and had the whole community involved, laying the groundwork. So that's the city, that's the county, that's a lot of individual groups that really came together to make this happen. And by the chamber taking its role as a catalyst to unite and bring those groups together, it makes all the difference. And so we continue to look at our role as being one to continue to push forward and think ahead of time. What's going to be needed in the next 10 years? What's going to be needed in the next 5 years? And people get excited when they see it happens like, wow, that happened overnight. But it really comes from a lot of planning and collaboration.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You know, this podcast, the Ignite podcast, is all about leadership. And it's leadership about, you know, people that are doing things in their own space, whether that's in a corporation or within their family structure or in their community. And certainly today we're talking a lot about community. And you talked a little bit about planning. What does it take? What are those things that a community does as a whole? And you, as the leader of the chamber, what types of things do you do to make those plans for the future?
So many times it's sitting with other leaders and really collaborating in terms of what do we agree upon and what do we see as something that's truly needed and necessary for our community. And are we willing to put resources, time, commitment, and bring others to the table to make that happen? So an example with UF Innovate, we had Sonia Douglas and Ann Collette, two visionaries that were at the chamber years ago that applied for a grant. They got the federal grant, and it was at an opportune time because we were in a community like the rest of the nation back then, 08, 09, they were dealing with economic downturns. And really, what were we going to do to move the needle forward in terms of preparing for the future? And that's where we brought the community together through a chamber standpoint on Innovation Gainesville. And that's when the whole collaboration came from. And it was great to bring the community because there was a lot of angst in the community because we had gotten rid of Alachua General Hospital that had been the hospital where many residents were born, and the East Side considered their local hospital. But by bringing people to the table, we had a wonderful thing come out of it. And that's when, Dr. Wynn Phillips went to UF, and UF came in, and Dr. Matchin, and they matched that grant fund, and it was the beginning. But it was a total community collaboration and a total community win. We continue to see this in other areas in our community where we have need for workforce housing. And so there are county commissioners right now working with the chamber, working with the United Way, working with the Community Foundation, working with other private businesses, and basically also some of the large apartment owners in the community to come up with solutions. But it takes that collaboration of a large group of parties who are vested in really making that difference.
You mentioned UF, and just for listeners that are not local to this area, I just want to make sure that everybody's clear that that's the University of Florida. And being in a college town, right? So traditionally, Gainesville has been known as just a college town. And it has over time become so much more than that.
It has.
And that collaboration, I'm sure, has played a large role. In terms of the research that you've done or the planning that you've done, is there something specific that you have looked at, or the chamber has looked at, or the collaborations have looked at that have really honed that planning to make Gainesville not just a college town, but the college be part of, a robust environment?
Sure. Well, we're very fortunate. We have great partners in the University of Florida and Santa Fe College here in our community, and they're always at the table when we're discussing opportunity. And I'll probably elaborate later because talent is such a key component of what we're doing today and where we're going, and which really makes our community relevant. And so by having phenomenal researchers and access to so many individuals from a statistical standpoint and to do research and everything, we've really drilled down and created partnerships with UF, Santa Fe, the city, the county, the chamber. And we've really looked at areas where we have deficiencies, areas that we can strengthen, areas we can improve. And the University of Florida has been an incredible partner in making that happen. We have actually one of the leaders at UF, Dr. Charlie Lane, has created a tremendous program where he's made a lot of investment in our city of Gainesville to move the needle forward. So there are basic studies that we've done in our city and really made incredible change. So there was a study that UF funded with the city of Gainesville to really look at ways that we can be more efficient in terms of 911 calls. And they created a program with our fire department and our paramedics. And through this program, they have minimized the number of calls that are coming by over 50%. These are calls that weren't truly emergencies, so that now our emergency services can move forward. And this is a program that's probably going to be a best practice across the country that was developed here, funded and laid out by the University of Florida with participants from both the city and the university, really strengthening that whole town gown component. When we look at Santa Fe, they're really a great partner that's really nimble at Santa Fe College. So if they look at business and look at industries that are struggling to have a talented or an educated workforce in a certain area, they've come to the task and really stepped up and created those programs to turn it around. So an example would be many years ago when I was with RTI Surgical, we couldn't hire enough technicians quick enough and everything. And it's amazing. They came to us and asked us exactly what we needed and tailored the program upon our request. And they got the funding. They created their Perry Center that's out in Alachua, right across the street from the whole biotechnology park. And I mean, all the companies, we're fighting to hire these folks as soon as they graduate. But it's looking at a collaboration and partnerships between our colleges, our university, and everything to really meet the business needs to grow us economically. And that's a significant part of the whole growth that's happening in our area.
Sure. Economic development is definitely a key portion of any community and continued growth over time. You know, just like in any corporation, collaboration is super important. And you mentioned in any community, collaboration is really important. But you mentioned talent. How has talent played a role in bringing those opportunities together?
So if I look at any product that we create in this community, it's talent. That's what we create more than anything else. We're very fortunate with our institutions of higher learning that we have the ability to really have the pick of the litter of the best and brightest in our region. And I try to let people know that historically, we always talked about location when it came to businesses or anything. Well, the world is changing rapidly, and these shifts that used to take about 18 months are moving much quicker. And the whole focus is going to be around talent. You're going to see jobs, you're going to see companies, you're going to see integration, expansion all around talent pool. Companies are going to be looking for the talent. Jobs are going to be changing. So there are predictions in the state of Florida that 85% of the jobs that are out there today won't exist then. What do? We have to rely on the talent. We have to rely on resources. We have to rely on institutions like Santa Fe College that have the ability to pivot so that we can move quickly and retrain a lot of our current workforce, but more importantly, tap into the pool that we currently have here in school.
So, Eric, I know that a lot of times we talk about workforce, development and the changes of just workers in general. I do a lot of leadership development programs where I talk about virtual workplace. And working virtually has become more and more, important to companies over time. That, in addition to technology and the way that technology is moving, we've got automation for a lot of jobs. You mentioned a lot of jobs will change and maybe not exist. How has the community here that you work so closely with prepared for this type of change so that we're staying relevant to making sure that there's job opportunities in the future?
So our focus has really been one of communicating that these changes are coming to make sure that our employers and our community understand that this is happening. And so through that, we're really examining a lot of our vocational programs that we have. We're also examining the industries that exist here. So one of the things that's really important when you look at the state of Florida, we're one of the most diverse states that exist economically in our nation. And what we want to do is bring those best practices to our community also and have the diversity of jobs. So that helps you in this transition. But more importantly, we have to start in our elementary schools, our middle schools, and high schools. And so it's so important that everyone has the ability to understand and meaning how to read and strong understanding of math and science, because these are going to be a part of the future. And so it's imperative that we make sure that we put the tools in place for our youth so that they're aware and they understand and they're comfortable with technology and science. This may even include us talking about how do we focus on bringing 5G to our community, because technology is not about to slow down. It's only going to accelerate, and the needs for companies coming in here is only going to increase. So we need to continue pushing the envelope, thinking outside of the box, bringing things just because they aren't anywhere else. We don't want to wait for that to happen. We want to continue to lead from a technology standpoint, an innovative standpoint, and a creative standpoint.
Mm. And you talked a little bit about communication and transparency and how important that really is in any community. Having that in mind, I'm wondering what advice can you give to somebody who really wants to be more involved in their community? Obviously we're talking about leadership here. So if you were to say this person's a great leader in the community, not necessarily in the job title or job role, but in their community, how does that person contribute to what you're talking about in terms of that growth from, K-12 up?
You will have different county commissioners holding workshops. The chamber will hold it, different business groups, and we're always welcome in the community. And many times we're disappointed that we don't have a greater turnout on some of these workshops that will really improve our community. And I understand. I mean, I know I've been guilty for many years, being very myopic, working on our own businesses, doing what we need to do the day to day, and being very focused so that we can be successful. But we also live in a community, a larger community that has needs and needs our involvement. And so my encouragement would, when you see any of these posted, whether it's online, it's in the newspaper, whether you're a part of a group or membership and you see it, sometimes we just have to take the time. I know it's out of our routine, but step up and join, because we need all of our voices in our community. We need everyone, all hands on deck. This is an exciting time, but it's only going to be the community we want if we get to share our voice. And I see the opportunities in our community to share our voice and to be involved, but I know people are busy or forget, but I think it's really responding to the call.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned about, joining in, kind of getting involved, and also having that myopic look at what we do. Again, when I work with corporations, that seems to be also in a corporate setting and probably in every other setting, and obviously also in a community world or community setting, that sometimes we do become a little bit tunnel vision. And what you're saying is if we can kind of reach across and understand what else is out there and then start crossing those lines to become more involved, we might be surprised at what we learn and
exactly
and what comes out of that experience as well. You also mentioned voices, being a voice in the community. I recently read a Gallup survey or an article that was put up by the Gallup poll that was talking about a community, and they looked at some analytics in their community. I think this one was in I can't remember the city Tulsa, Oklahoma, I think is where they looked at. And they looked at the behavioral impact, the analytics around, what the voices of the citizens are. Help us understand a little bit about what happens in the Gainesville community and how the Chamber leads some of those efforts in terms of the voice of the citizen.
Sure. So, a great example would be about a year and a half ago, we had our community come together as a group called the Friendship 7 that's comprised of the Chamber, the University of Florida, Santa Fe College, the City of Gainesville, our local county. I don't know why I'm drawing a blank here, but it's really a great group that really came together to really do an analytical study of needs assessment in our community, strengths, weaknesses, everything out there. And it was really enlightening to find out and to see the numbers tied to the disparity that existed within our community. So many of us work in a certain area, live in a certain area, and we are in our bubble. But to see the number of individuals that we consider the working poor that are struggling, with housing, workforce housing, that are struggling with food insufficiency, the kids in school that are struggling. And these are things that in our community, we're creating so many wonderful things. We know that we can address those if we make it a priority. And so I'm looking forward to this year and the years moving forward for us making a difference and changing those dynamics. So when we go back and look, we can see the needle's been moved, that we have fewer people who need housing assistance and needing food and some of the basic needs and rights that we take for granted.
Mm-hmm. And Eric, just for those people that are listening to us and not watching the video, I want to remind our listeners that we're talking to Eric Godet. He is the president and CEO of the Greater Gainesville Chamber of Commerce. And we're talking about the voice of the citizens. And with that data that you're gathering through the seven, you called it the seven.
Sure. It was the Friendship 7.
Friendship 7. Through that initiative, are there things that you've already learned that will help shape your leadership as the president of the chamber moving forward?
Absolutely. So I'm very excited that this information's out there because historically, as the Greater Gainesville Chamber, we've always focused on economic indicators. Number of people hired, unemployment numbers, number of new jobs, number of new companies moving to the area, those kind of economic growth indicators. Now we've expanded. We will always include those, but we're also including other indicators in terms of kids' graduation, broken out by diversity, food insufficiency, housing challenges. We're looking at more social aspects that we're going to bring into our indicators moving forward. And so it's a huge component that impacts our employers. It's a huge component that impacts all of their employees.
And I know also that there's been a lot of research that the poor millennial generation has been kind of isolated a little bit, kind of called out for a couple of things. But I think one of the things that they've been kind of called out for that I think applies to all of us, not just the millennial generation, is wanting to be part of something bigger. They want to have a piece of what they do to have impact. And I think what you're hearing is that impact can also be done within the community efforts. So I'm also curious on your thoughts in terms of your leadership and the next steps with the chamber, how to engage some of the younger generations.
So what's really exciting is that we're finding out that a lot of the companies are starting to incorporate more of the social components into their hiring practices as a benefit, meaning giving employees a certain amount of time off to go and volunteer with the charity of their choice, giving them an opportunity to expand, their reach into doing that feel-good component, something that gives them satisfaction and gratification. So this social component, we're watching to become part of the fabric. And with the talent shortage that's going to be coming and the battle for talent, I really see those companies that embrace that and have those components are going to be heads and shoulders above the others. They're going to have people flocking to work for them. So in addition to a great wage and benefits, they're going to be looking at that quality of life and those social components that that organization may have in their mission statement, but they're going to be looking for them. I think our millennials are holding us accountable to make sure we're walking the walk and not just talking the talk. And you can see companies already making those adjustments.
Yeah. And it's been such a refreshing thing too. Again, in a lot of the workshops that I run, some people ask me, well, gosh, the millennials that are on my team, I'm struggling with X, Y, and Z. And when it turns out the things that they're struggling with are the things that, we've traditionally looked at those hard metrics and not necessarily the human behavior aspect of things. And now that generation is bringing that stuff to the forefront. So I'm glad to hear that we're thinking about that in terms of how our community blossoms as well. In terms of strategy moving forward in either economic development or job creation, what role might the chamber play in collaborating with all the areas of the city to be able to kind of boost that moving forward?
Sure. So, what's really exciting is we have a regional council. And this regional council is comprised of all of the 9 municipalities within the Greater Gainesville area and the county of Alachua, Florida. And part of that is making sure that we have everyone at the table. So when we do this, an example would be last week, Friday, we had our brand new president and CEO of Enterprise Florida. here, Jamal Sowell, to meet all of our leaders, our business groups, our different county leaders, mayors, everyone invited to be here and meet him in terms of the vision for not only Florida, but for our area from an economic development standpoint. On Monday, we'll have our local congressman, Congressman Yoho, will be in from DC to meet with the same group and others as our distinguished speaker. So we find ourselves as a collaborator to bring those movers and shakers that are making things happen from an economic development standpoint, whether it's infrastructure within our state, when we talk about our roads, our highways, bridges, airports, everything, it's critical. And we're bringing those leaders here. We're looking forward to invite our new agricultural commissioner that has incredible new vision in terms of where we need to bring agricultural technology into our community, which is huge for us. I mean, as a state, agriculture is our second largest industry, and it's a staple of this area of North Central Florida as a history from an economic development standpoint. So we're really excited to just showcase all of our cities all and throughout our county to really make them as viable a place for expansion, growth, and attraction of new others. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and collaboration, again, it kind of comes back to collaboration, but also what I'm hearing from you is that the Chamber is going to play a huge role in obviously networking, right? So that's really kind of the main driver sometimes for a Chamber is to connect with others. How has networking helped you personally in your own career?
Well, networking is one of those secrets that most people aren't aware that has an impact. So I have been tremendously blessed by individuals I've met previously that created opportunities for me. And that's network to me in a nutshell. So you're just out there working, doing what you do and helping. And many times it's by serving on a board and you're working for a CEO of another company that then recommends you for something else. And you're not even aware that it's going on. But that's how, it's just to me, it's part of life. We are a people that respond to others and people watch how you respond, whether you're working for a charitable organization or a company, especially during challenging times. And by bringing people together and working, you get a better sense of who they are and how they're going to be and what a joy or what a joy they may not be to work with. But I think it's just the synergies of bringing people together and seeing that interaction and finding out that you relate to them in many different ways that really helps more than anything else.
Yeah. I'm a big fan of networking, and just in terms of bringing people together. Napoleon Hill, in his famous book, Think and Grow Rich, he talked about the mastermind groups, how you bring people together and get them to think about and talk about and just brainstorm. And it really is so powerful, and what you can accomplish when you network, you collaborate, and you bring people together. So, go ahead. Yeah.
Well, I was going to say, there are different ways of networking also. I look at the Chamber, we do a type of networking that's very strategic at times also. So we will also bring companies in and have them sit down with one of our partners, which is Career Source Florida, which is our workforce group for the state. And many times our companies that are expanding and growing do not understand or realize the opportunities that are available to them in terms of workforce grants and different things that are available that CareerSource has. So for us, we see it as a critical component of saving companies money with training and everything else and getting reimbursed by utilizing these grants that are out there available for each and every one of us but many times we have to make sure they're aware. We do it with new groups that come in, but more importantly, it's really helping those existing companies that are trying to expand and trying to grow, let them know that, yes, you can do that. And if you work with these guys, you can get reimbursed for all those people you hire during this period of time, which is exactly what they need sometimes to help launch a new product.
I think you and I should talk a little bit more about that. That sounds like a great opportunity. Well, great work that you're doing, Eric. We really appreciate you sharing some of the experiences that you've had so far, some of the thoughts that are occurring within the community, and then how just generally in a community that collaboration and networking plays a huge role in how successful a community can be. So thank you for being with us on Ignite. We really appreciate you being here today. In just a moment, we'll be right back with a couple of final thoughts.
I'm James Packer. I'm the General Manager of Kirk ISS based in the Cayman Islands. I used IT Pro TV extensively in my last place. It grew very well, helped upskill the team. I had 110 engineers in the field and we had dozens of IT Pro accounts with the guys training, and last year alone they passed over 40 certs by using the online training. I think I can safely say without IT Pro TV I wouldn't be where I was today, because I only got this job on the back of the qualifications I have.
Welcome back. On this episode of Ignite, Eric Godet discussed how he helped create a business climate in Gainesville that fosters economic growth and opportunity. His focus went way beyond the city's economic prosperity to overall social well-being. Godet's approach was a catalyst for bringing the community together. To be up to date on the latest episodes, follow us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, or LinkedIn. From IT Pro TV and myself, thank you and see you next time.